I'm going to start in just a moment. I just will wait until 6 o'clock, and tonight I'm going to try to do very well at keeping the meeting moving so that we can finish it in an hour and get you guys back home to your evening. And we'll stay as long as we need to after we close the meeting. I'll be here as long as people want me to be here if we need more time. Well, I guess it's 6 o'clock. So I want to welcome everyone. My name is Sue Frost, for those of you who have never been here. Is there anyone here for the first time tonight? So do you mind if I ask how you heard about our meeting?
I'm on Facebook and I replied to all your polls. I usually have rehearsal on Wednesday, so I can't get here.
Oh,
but so
okay.
Tonight was free.
That's great. Thanks for coming.
We're from
Email?
We're from the Agency on Aging, and you were nice enough to send us some newsletter, monthly newsletters and so on. So
Okay, great. Thanks for coming, everyone. Well, the reason I asked is because this month we did an experiment. We didn't send out the postcards, and so I was curious to know how that would impact our turnout and if we would have new people still coming, because with the postcards we generally have new people every meeting, which is really exciting for me because I get to meet more of my constituents. So I'm excited that you're here. It's important for me to be able to share with you what's going on at the county. It's also even more important to me to be able to hear from you how you feel about issues and how can I better represent you. So that's what this meeting's about. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I hope to introduce a couple important community leaders, and then I'll spend a little bit of time giving a brief update, and then we're going to hopefully have at least a half hour for just questions and answers and comments. So at this time, I'd like to invite everyone, if you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you. So this evening we have some important folks here. I want to first invite Lieutenant Commander Robin Johnson and her counterpart. I forgot names already.
Sergeant George Barrios.
Sergeant George Barrios. I wanted to introduce the Lieutenant Commander. She is now heading up the office in Rancho Cordova, which serves Orangevale, and I'll let you just take a couple moments to say hi to everyone and introduce yourself and whatever you want to say.
Absolutely, thank you very much. My name, like she said, is Robin Johnson. I took over for, a lot of you know Brandon Straw.
Yeah.
He was the commander in the East Sacramento area, and he has since promoted and moved on. He's downtown now. He's still a part of your community and a great guy. We are in constant communication, but I've taken over for him. So I'm not from Orangevale, but I do plan on being a part of your community and being involved in what is going on. And with that, we also had a retirement of Sergeant Evan Williams, who was the tall, handsome motor guy that used to come to some of the meetings. And Sergeant Barrios has taken over for him as our pop sergeant, so he will be working with our officers within the area and in Orangevale to make sure that any of your concerns are met and that we are out within your community and answering your questions and addressing any of your traffic issues that you may have.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Appreciate you being here. we have Bruce in the back with our library manager, Bruce Barber. And do we have anyone else here from the CPAC or the Park District Board? Any other elected? We don't have anyone here tonight. They must all be busy working on the community. So with that, I want to just kind of give you a preview of what we're going to be visiting about tonight. I'm going to be giving a very brief update on homelessness to kind of give you an idea about how our initiatives are going at the county. Each couple months, the county staff give me a 5-page report that kind of tells me the progress of each of the initiatives and how many people they have housed and how that's going. So I'll give you an update on that. I want to share a little bit of an update on roads and the new next generation of recycling, which is coming, and those of you that are Facebook fans might have already seen a sneak preview around all that. I'm going to be sharing that, and also just a little bit on public safety. So to start with, I just wanted to, for those of you who have not come to the meetings or may not be dialed in, at the county about 2 years ago, we had hired a special homeless coordinator who and the staff took 1.5 years to evaluate the county's expenditures and programs based on, what we're doing about homelessness. And after that 1.5 years, the staff came up with some initiatives that the county adopted. And those initiatives basically follow the philosophy of coaxing them out of homelessness one soul at a time. And so our philosophy is we don't want to treat the symptoms, we want to get to the heart of whatever that problem is and why are you homeless and how can we give you a leg up back into a sustainable living situation. And so those homeless initiatives involved families. We have been working with families, and over the past year or so, over 781 families have literally declared themselves homeless. And of those 781, 202 have been exited to permanent housing or shelters. We have a Mather community campus, which a couple years ago, for those of you who may remember, the federal government changed the way they wanted to fund homelessness, and they wanted people to have what they call low barrier, and they put very specific requirements on the federal funding that was going to come down to programs, and Mather was very dependent upon that federal funding, and they were actually in a position of going out of business if they didn't get some funding. And so during that year, the county determined that we felt that that was a program worth saving, that they were doing a lot of good out at the Mather community campus. So the county did fund them, and we have been funding them since. They work with residential and non-residential veterans, seniors. They have job programs. They are currently housing 122 guests with several people waiting in line to get in. And Volunteers of America, who also work in partnership over there at Mather campus, have about 40 units that they are funding, and they are dedicated for homeless veterans, specifically to homeless veterans. So the Mather campus is going very well. We also have what we call full service scattered sites. And what that is basically homes within the community that are rented. The county tried to site a large facility that would be a 75-bed facility, and we were not able to find a location that either people wanted that in their backyard, or it was too close to schools, or too close to juvenile hall, or whatever. We couldn't find a place for it, and so staff said we need to get this money to work quickly. And so what we did is we went to the scattered site model, which is really working out great. In the last year or so, since we started that, since March 13 of 2018, which is about a year ago today, right? Oh wow, a year ago today. since that time, we have 175 folks placed in shelters. Currently in shelter, there are about 70. Exited to stable housing is 64. Exited in another way is 41. So that kind of gives you an idea of how those scattered shelters are working. It's like the 41 that have exited walked out, basically, probably. So, you know, the goal is always to open up these shelters. Each one of those homes has less than 6 people, so there's 5 people in each home. And we have services that, you know, work with those folks, like getting, you know, warrants, helping them get their warrants situated so they can get their ID, and helping them figure out job or revenues, you know, so we can connect them to permanent housing, you know, mental health, addiction you know, whatever they need. We try to get them situated into a sustainable living situation. And, you know, sometimes they leave because they're, you know, this is not an exact science. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It's not easy, and people have to, it's their choice on whether or not they want to, if they're able to do it. And so sometimes they come back a couple times before we're able to get them situated into a permanent housing situation. The good thing about the scattered sites is we can expand it quickly by subleasing units, and we can contract it as we need it. So it's not like we have a big multi-million-dollar building that's putting taxpayer money into it, and then if we solve the problem, now we still have that building and people working in it, and you know, it's a flexible business model, which I think is good. Long-term, high-cost homeless are those people who cost the taxpayers the most money. And for those of you who might have watched my campaign in 2016, one of my big commitments was I have compassion for the homeless, but I also have compassion for the taxpayers who are paying for it and the businesses that are paying for it. So the long-term high cost is all around. The county identified 250 of the highest users of emergency services, like 911, emergency room. Some of the homeless people just call 911 to get to the emergency room to refill their prescription because they don't have transportation and they don't have money to get their prescription for something they need. So those 250 people that we identified, all 250 have been assigned to case management services. 213 have been enrolled into a program, including the top user on the list, which was using around $150,000 a year in emergency services, and 209 persons have been housed since that program was implemented, which is amazing, amazing news. So that is a real success story. I wanted to say a word about a program that I was really excited to work on over the past year. I met with Pride Industries, and I think I wrote an article on this, so I won't spend a lot of time, but I went out and I toured the Pride Industries in Roseville, and that was the most inspiring tour. If you ever have a chance to tour, it's the most inspiring place. I mean, it's a place where they help special needs individuals train into working situation, and they work with a commensurate wage, and then Pride Industries administers the program, helps get them to their job, oversees that they're delivering on the contract. Like some of them, all they do is they put 10 tea bags in a box over and over all day, but to them they're the happiest in ther work. You can't even believe it. They're walking up to you saying, "Look, I got an award because I did more than blah blah blah," and it's just the sweetest thing. Anyway, while I was there, we had that conversation, and I said, "Too bad, because there are some homeless people that could use a leg up. You know, they're not quite. They need help. You know, they need a ride, they need clothes, they need a shower, they need a resume, they need a skill. Some people are not veterans, that's okay. Some people are not veterans and they're not connected to some kind of a disability or senior social security, you know. So we worked on, Pride came up with a proposal for the county and we approved it in the last month, and it allocated $387,000 for a pilot program that is going to take 4 groups of 10 people. There will be 1 Pride staff member per 5 people. And so in March it started with the first, we're getting the first 10 in place. They'll be in a 10-week program where they'll have work experience. They will work maybe for a few hours each day. Then they go to their work training where they will earn a certificate in the construction trades. Then they will, once they earn that certificate, they will be placed into a, I'm having a senior moment. I do this all the time. What do you call that?
Kids sports as you get older.
Oh gosh, can you help me? Can somebody help me?
Apprenticeship program.
Apprenticeship. Who said, thank you. They're placed into an apprenticeship, and if they do well in that, then they hopefully will get placed into a permanent job situation, which gives them income, which gives us the ability to connect them with vouchers or some kind of a sustainable housing situation to get started, and hopefully they'll work their way out of that and become completely independent back at life. And so I'm really excited about this, and we already have had 2 companies, construction training union type companies, that said we want to be involved. You know, do you need others to help you with this program? We want to get involved. And so my hope is that it is a wonderful private-public partnership, but you know, my philosophy is that government cannot do it all. And so the more private, and the construction trades really need workers, and so they're motivated to get involved with something like this. And we're wrapping services around these people while they're training for these jobs. So my hope is that it will go well. If it does, we're going to be reevaluating it. That's another thing. If it's not going well, I don't want to continue it. So we'll see how it goes. Some of these people are already in shelters. Some of them are literally out in the parks districts, and they just have to be willing to commit to the 10-week program to get involved in it. And Pride is administering the entire program. I think they're calling it Pride Ascent Training Program. And then I don't want to forget to mention that the big elephant in the room. Does anyone know what the big elephant is? I know you do because I talk about it all the time.
Roads. Library. Your 2 favorite.
Okay, I'm going to tell you. All those other things are big elephants too. Okay, I shouldn't have asked it. It's the seniors. It's the silver tsunami. It's a lot of seniors are aging and they're on a fixed low income, and the cost of living is going up. And everything is going up, and we are having an increasingly vulnerable senior population, and we're anticipating this conversation is now beginning to have a place at the Capitol, and I'm seeing it pop up. It's a real issue, and so if you know of a senior who's struggling, call my office, because we have some resources that we did hold an event last year. It was called 65 Plus, Ways to Save, a money saving workshop for seniors. And it was a workshop that was limited specifically to only vendors who can bring one of 3 things. They either bring revenues, savings, or some kind of service or something that augments the monthly budget. So it has to accrue to the senior's monthly budget, or they don't get into this event. And what that did was it made it a powerful, packed full of, you know, resources that seniors can actually figure out, actually get real help. And some of the resources were like food bank. You can go to the food bank and that can augment your monthly budget by a couple hundred. If you go to the food bank every week, they'll give you 1 or 2 bags of groceries, and it can, there's ways to, if you can't save on your rent, there's other ways that you can save. And so we have those resources, and I actually did talk to some folks this last week. Are you the folks I talked to about the senior? No, you're not.
No, I don't know if you had contacted anyone from our agency, but.
Oh, what did you say? Where are you?
We're Agency on Aging, so we've got a lot of the supervisors.
Okay, I had some visitors in my office this week who wanted to, they want to do something, you know, so I was telling them about this program that we had, and one of them has a church in Orangevale. So it's possible that this year, on October 1st, our event is going to be in Orangevale, and that senior event is going to be in Orangevale at one of the local churches. So we're going to be working on that. Last year it was in Citrus Heights, and we had about 350 or 400 seniors there. And the nice thing about it is you also get entertained, and kids, the seniors' kids can come too. Were you there?
Yes, it was great.
It was so fun because we had volunteer actors from the community, the Latter-day Saints, Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints Church volunteered to do some
There were different scenarios.
Improv.
About what can happen.
Yeah, it was scenarios on things that can happen to seniors. Like the granddaughter comes up and says, you know, Grandma, I need $5,000 right now, you know, and then the actors show, you know, what you could do, what's a good way to react, how can you react to that, or they show the scenario and then they come back and talk about it with the audience and say, how could you react, what is a good way. And actually there were people at that event who afterwards came up to me and said, Sue, I had something I was going to do with my house, and they keep telling me I have to do it, or I'm going to have to pay more. And after this event, I know I don't have to do anything. I can do it whenever I want. And I was like, yes. So I think when you get older, you just have been through so much. You don't care that much anymore, and things, you get soft. You know, you're just so nice. You get nice, and people can take advantage of you. And so this is kind of a fun way to just think about, okay, the challenges that seniors are up against. I also wanted to share with you that when I came, now I'm switching to roads. This will be a fun subject, I'm sure.
Maybe if we take a chance to name a pothole after us.
Yeah, I know. I don't even know whether to bring this up, but okay, let's dive in. When I was first elected in 2016, when I was running for supervisor, the backlog on road maintenance was $450 million at Sacramento County. The current unfunded backlog is $783.8 million. That's 2 years later, 450 to 783, almost at 784. And we're expecting that will double to, or more than double to 1.7 billion by 2038 if we don't do something about doing something with our roads. The Sacramento County spent several months doing a pavement condition study, and they came back a few weeks ago and reported on the pavement condition. I'm going to just go over some of the top highlights. The Sacramento County, first I'm going to say pavement condition. Do you know what that is, what that means? Pavement condition is a measurement between 0 and 100, and it's how they measure the condition of roads. If your roads are 70 to 100%, they're considered in good to excellent condition. 50 to 70 is fair. 25 to 49 is poor, and very poor is 0 to 24. So, and the worse the pavement gets, the more crackling and the more air and rain and water that can go down through those cracks, the harder it is, the more expensive it is to fix, because then they basically have to grate the road down, clear down to the dirt level in order to rebuild it back up, because you can't just put You can't do an overlay on a really bad road because it'll just move and crack. It won't hold because of all the movement. And then once it cracks, moisture gets under there and it washes underneath. And so the average pavement condition in Sacramento County is 50, which is at the bottom side of fair. And I'm going to just give you some comparisons. Folsom is 74, Elk Grove is 73, easy to understand, newer communities. Sac City is 66, West Sac 60.
What about Citrus Heights?
Citrus Heights, I don't have it broken out by, I did not get a number broken out by Citrus Heights. I'm sorry about that. The existing budget that we spend annually on roads is $35 million. And so based on that, if we continue to spend that $35 million, we're going to be down to a 34 PCI within 2 decades. So in 20 years, we're going to be, so we're on a downward trend with what we're spending on roads, basically. To maintain the 50, just to maintain where we're at, we would need to spend $50.5 million a year, we estimate, and to bring the roads up to 70, which is good to excellent, we would need to spend $87.9 million a year. So basically, we're chasing potholes. And last year, we had 50,000 potholes, 13,000 311 calls. Does everyone here know what 311 is? It's a convenience. If you don't know, it's a phone app, and you can download it on your smartphone. And the nice thing about 311 is you don't have to make a call. You can just take a picture of the pothole, and the GPS, it marks the GPS location of that pothole. You send it to the county. You don't have to wait on hold, and it reports that pothole. And then the county will come out as quickly as we can, because we want to make sure once those are reported, we try to get out as quickly as we can to fix them, because someone could get hurt or there could be a liability associated with a bad road. So one of the things, I guess the good news is that the county is developing some strategies on moving forward. Number one, we're thinking rather than just fixing the worst roads, we are going to think about fixing the roads that are not so bad before they get so bad, because it's so much more expensive to fix them once they've deteriorated all the way. And so we're considering that, and we estimate that that could save us, by preserving those good roads, it could save us $289 million by 2038. That seems far away, but that's a lot of money that, because the worse it gets, just deferring the maintenance is going to cost the taxpayers more money. What happened? Some of the graphs that they showed in the meeting that we had on this were interesting. It kind of looks like over the past 4 years, the state and the federal government have kind of they've reduced the amount of money to the roads, and a lot of the money they are giving is putting conditions on how, new roads need to be have features that will improve the air quality, that will create more walkable rideable communities. So we're doing a lot of that complete street stuff. If you've driven down Hazel, that's a good example. I mean, you have to admit, it's a beautiful, the before to after, the after is beautiful. It is so nice, and you can see the trees are going to grow up, and there's going to be shade, and people can walk and people ride. So these this complete streets, and a lot of the projects that that are competing for less money, but they have to meet very specific criteria in order to get the money. And the challenge is there's just not enough money. We are kind of transitioning into electric vehicles, and people are not spending as much money on gas,
and the cost of gas has gone way down, and so the prior projections on the amount of money that everyone thought we were going to get from gas tax has changed. And on top of that, legislature came in back in 2010 and changed the gas tax law so that part of it became excise tax instead of the regular sales tax. And excise tax is a little bit different, and the difference is they can redirect excise tax into the general fund to go toward anything. So now, if they have something pressing that they want to spend that money on, they can redirect it to something else, and they have. The state has done that. And so I've often said one of the things that we could do is pause the high-speed rail. You know, that the taxpayers voted, I believe in 2014, on, $34 billion for the high-speed rail. We've now, I think it's over $77 billion. We're spending a lot of money on a high-speed rail that's going to serve a couple hundred people. We could have used that money and fixed all the roads in California. So but that argument, I don't know, that's not getting us anywhere. I keep saying it, but I don't know if anyone's listening. Well, actually, I should tell you, the Governor Newsom did say the high-speed rail is going to go from Bakersfield to Merced now. He's only going to have it go from Bakersfield to Merced. And this is what I heard was that then the federal government came in and said, well, if you're only going to do that, then we want our $3 billion or something that we promised you back. And then they said, well, no, I mean, we didn't say we're not going to do it. We just said right now we're doing it here. And so now the conversation that we're having in all these boards that I serve on 25 to 27 different boards. SACOG, Sacramento Area Council of Governments, Sacramento Transportation Authority, some of the ones that manage the transportation part of it are having conversations around. The SB 1 that passed is not going to make it happen. It's only going to cover about a third of what we need in order to get our roads, get to where we need to get on maintaining our roads. And so the conversation now is, how do we come back? Do we come back with a local tax measure? Do we come back with toll roads? Or do we come back with dedicated lanes for buses or fast track? We're looking at, we have actually had visitors from Virginia and other places to tell us how, the successes they've had with things they've tried. And that conversation, I mean, all of those. We could probably have all those and still not have enough. Who knows? I mean, but I don't know what the taxpayers will have be amenable to. I did put something out on Facebook to just kind of stick a toe in the water to see what the temperature was so that I could get some feedback from my constituents, and oh boy, did I get feedback.
How did that go?
Oh, it didn't go. Well, it went real well. I got feedback big time. So we're still waiting for that. I don't even, has that poll finished, Vance?
I don't know, Facebook's been down all day.
Oh, that's why I can't get in there.
You only put it out for 24 hours.
Well, the feedback I got was the general feedback I got was people are not happy about having this conversation again so soon. And there were a lot of people that were really unhappy about the toll roads. There were some people that would rather have toll roads than more taxes. But mostly the feedback I got from my district was, how about if you go back, Sue, and figure something else out? How about that? That's kind of what I got. That's what I feel I got. So we'll
How do we put a pause on, like, what you did with the build-up with Hazel?
How do you pause that so that we don't have to meet those requirements, but you can fix our roads? I mean, what is the impact, the amount of money that we've spent on Hazel, what's the impact been on the community? I don't see any more traffic going up and down on the sidewalks.
Oh,
Why don't
that
we
is
pause
such
that
a good
and fix it?
question. I can tell you, because I was in a meeting today at the Air Quality Management District, and we were having this conversation around AB 617, which is an air quality requirement. And it's basically saying a lot of the air quality problems we have, the air quality problems we have are mostly caused from cars, vehicle emissions. And so we need to figure out how to get less cars on the road and less vehicle emissions. And so they're putting out these very strict requirements. And this was policy, by the way, that was passed, I think, over a decade ago. AB 32, maybe not that long ago. Vance, you're the expert.
I want to say 2010.
Okay, 2010, almost a decade ago. AB 32, and then I think SB 375, and then AB 617. There were three. You know, these laws, what they do is they pass it. It's kind of like this SB1. It ramps up over 4 years so the pain doesn't hit you right away. You don't feel it. It kind of helps you work your way into it. So SB1 will over the next, that is good news, by the way. SB1 did not get repealed. I voted to repeal it, but it did not get repealed. And in a way, that's really good, because over the next few years, we're going to ramp up to 25 million more a year expected at the county for revenues toward roads. So that's going to probably save us in a lot of ways. But, and this summer in July, not to digress, but this summer in July, just be ready, because that excise tax is going to go up in July. That's going to start ramping up this July. So part of that SB1 hasn't even kicked in yet, and you haven't realized all of it, so there will be more coming. But what I wanted to share with you is that on the air quality goals and the conversation that I'm hearing is that we will be required to meet these laws, or our region will not receive as much funding as maybe those who do meet those laws. In other words, do this, or I think the way they said it in my meeting today was, let the polluters pay. It's basically, that's the conversation that's happening at the Capitol, let the polluters pay. So people who don't get in step with these rules and regulations will not get as much money for their roads. And so now we're in a situation where the law is stating we have to come to these expectations, and we're not sure how we're going to do it. We're still trying to figure that out, and we sure don't know how we're going to pay for all of it. Yes, you and then.
So if we all bought electric vehicles tomorrow, and we didn't do the roads the way they want us to, you're saying we wouldn't get money, but we wouldn't be polluters either. So there's a flaw in their logic.
That was, the idea around all that is, and that was something I was thinking about today, because I did receive a long report on, how is Uber and autonomous vehicles, when you think about an autonomous vehicle with no driver, and Uber, if you can do Uber or autonomous as cheaply as buying a car and paying insurance and all the upkeep, you'll just take the autonomous, and then the autonomous doesn't have a driver, so you don't have drivers. That changes the economy, because now all those people have to go get a job somewhere. But you also have vehicles driving around empty and with people. So now in theory we could have an increase in the VMT, vehicle miles traveled, and emissions just as a result of this changing, the changing technologies are changing so fast. But at the end of the day, the rationale is that ultimately it's possible that, they may, if we go all electric, they wouldn't have the same vehicle emissions. We still would have more vehicles on the road, but, I think part of the dilemma right now is trying to figure out how to meet very specific requirements, how to measure how to even measure that. How do we even go to a developer who wants to develop a subdivision and say, okay, if you build this subdivision, we're going to have these many new roads, and it's going to cause that many more people on the road driving this many vehicle miles traveled for that amount of, how do you measure that, and how do you have them pay for the impact on that? That's what we're grappling with. And so the laws are not, we're not even sure we can achieve it. I mean, I guess the idea is do best efforts. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do, because my district is very, seems pretty sure about what they want, you know. So, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question.
Where does the money come from that we get for the roads anyway? You said some of it comes from the state?
Historically, the federal government paid about 10%. Over time, the federal government and the state government used to pass down money. In 2012 or 13, that money began to have different new conditions, and they began to say, we want you to have self-help at the local level. We want you to start helping yourselves. We're backing off. The Fed said, we're backing off. It's now the state's problem. The state took on the problem and said, and basically their priorities about transportation are different than the folks in Orangevale or Citrus Heights or wherever. They're thinking, you know, they're grappling with, okay, the overall state. Here's an example. San Francisco and LA have a big problem. They have a lot of high-paying jobs, but not affordable housing for the people that work in their high-paying jobs. They're paying, you know, $35,000 or $4,000 a month for a one-bedroom or studio apartment or whatever. I mean, they can't afford it. So they're coming to our area, buying up our houses, which displaces our affordable opportunities, and they're paying cash because they have the job, they have the money, and they're commuting. So now we're having this conversation around passenger rail, high-speed rail. How can we get people to their jobs fast, and they can just come from the outside area into the big city? This is just my opinion. It may not be the opinion of other people. It's my observation that a part of what's happening at the state could be that they're trying to figure out how to grapple with the challenges of an unbalanced job housing situation in these huge cities. Now, the question that emerged in one of the board meetings that I was sitting in was, I wish it would have been me because it was such a good question. Why don't we just bring the jobs here? Why don't we bring the jobs to Sacramento rather than trying to build, you know, a passenger high-speed rail? And so, but the challenge is getting those employers to want to come here, and then you have a whole nother basket of issues around, you know, can they come here, and can it be easy for them to do something quickly? Do we have a workforce? No, we don't. You know, there's a lot of other challenges going on around this whole change in the demographics, in the whole, all the environmental laws and all the changes are making it for just a hurricane of shift at all these at a lot of different levels, which is, we're having to make decisions forward, and we don't even know what kind of transportation is going to emerge as the best thing. Okay, I'm going to let her ask. Can you be quick? One more and then we're done.
Well, my taxes haven't gone down, but they've decided to give less money to roads, so where is the money going? If it's not going to the roads, then how come my taxes haven't decreased? What are they doing with it?
Same with the gas tax.
You know, I was studying this after I got elected, trying to figure out, because if you follow the money, you usually get the answers, okay? And what I found out was that about 15, I think it was around 15 billion that had been redirected in different areas of transportation to different things. Some of the money is going to transportation, but it's going to bond debt. So it's paying debt. Some of it is going to a lot is going to high-speed rail. So that is the big rub, because you can turn around and say to the legislature, we want you to go back and think of something different, and they're managing their whole budget with different priorities, and we don't control what they do. We are a branch of the state. Technically, we operate as a branch of the state. So when we get money from the state, you may think we at the county we have a $4.2 billion budget, but less than 17% of that budget is discretionary, meaning we can decide what we want to spend it on. Almost all the money has conditions. It will give you this many million if you'll spend it on homelessness, and you'll spend it this way, and you'll report back this way. We'll give you this much money if you build houses near transit. We'll give you this if you do roads that have sidewalks. It puts conditions on the money, and so we then have an administrative, burden of trying to get smart people who can figure out how to get our hands on this money. It's a vicious cycle. I don't know if I can't just tell you where the money went. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that's some of the places. One of the past legislators did walk up to me in a meeting one time, and he said, "Sue, where do you think all the transportation dollars are going?" And I said, "I don't know, where?" He said, "Transportation." Okay, the answer is it's going to transportation, Sue. Get a clue. He was trying to tell me to get a clue. It's going to transportation. The point is, it's going to debt. It's going to other stuff. It's not going to what my constituents want it to go to.
So it's going
That's
to high-speed rail, which isn't going to do me any good. So I get worse roads, and somebody gets a nice train.
That's okay. We're going to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said there's different stipulations on getting the money for the roads, like having sidewalks and that kind of thing. Is that just on like the main thoroughfares like Hazel and Greenback and Madison, or are you talking like repairs just on our neighborhood roads, because we don't have room for sidewalks in Orangevale. Our neighborhood weren't built.
Well, that's for any kind of major corridors and commercial corridors. There's going to be very specific requirements on how we update those roads. For overlays and for just maintenance and repair, what they showed us was a graph, and the graph basically showed over the last 4 years, what it used to be was the federal and state government would give us money every year. Maybe 1 year it was $2 million, 1 year it was $20 million, but it averaged around $8 to $10 million, which was not enough. That kind of dwindled off, and the 20 million or the 10 million, it stopped coming. And so now the latest that we're hearing is they're possibly going to tie housing to road and transportation money, and if we don't fulfill our certain housing requirements, we won't get as much on transportation. So basically, we're like the kid at the end of the table with our hand out, waiting for the crumbs to please give us some money. Kind of like feels like that. And we're trying to figure out how to meet those requirements, but it's not always easy, because we don't have the money, or it's not, the market, there aren't developers, there are not developers that can just step up and buy a piece of property and make that happen now. How development historically in California has worked is developers have come in and they had to buy land and hold on to it for decades in order to get it to pencil out, and then finally, when the market went up, because California land is more expensive. So then when it got to a certain point, they were able to say, okay, I think we can do it, meet this window. This window's going to come, I think we can do it during that window, and they try and plan it out. Now what's happening is that the state is saying, we want you to change the way you plan communities. We want to have, communities in the urban core. We don't want sprawl. you know, we don't, so all those places where they were hanging on to it and it can work, maybe work, aren't necessarily able to do that because the way the funding and the way the planning is trying to lead them into a different infill type situation. But in order to come in and into the middle of a city and do infill, you then have to tear things down, and it costs more to do the infill than if you just went out to the cheap land and just built it. So what they used to do is go out and build it, and that's how they could pencil it out. Now we have so many, we're so backlogged on transportation money. There's so many rules and regulations that even in Rio Linda, the developers are trying to build a subdivision out there, and they're telling me, Sue, you know, it's the market out there is like 350 to 450. That's the kind of houses we want to build. But we can't build for less than 6 or 7 and make it pencil. And we can't pay money to build subdivisions. So there you have it. Yes?
So on the gas, I think a lot of the money is coming from the pump, as I understand it, the taxes. So you have to have a gas-powered vehicle to be paying for road repair. They changed how we register our vehicles. Those prices have gone up. But if I'm right about this, electric vehicles only pay the registration. If you're not at the pump, you're not paying for your 3,000-pound vehicle to go down the road, say 15,000 miles, creating the same number of potholes as a gas burner 3,000-pound car. Why don't we use mileage? They record your mileage at SMOG. We can have insurance companies record mileage, make it reportable to DMV, and then base your annual registration on mileage and use of the road.
That's part of the conversation too. And not all the money comes, some of it comes from registration fees. And on the SB1, the money, I feel bad. I told you guys I was going to do something and I'm not doing it. It's almost 7. But I'm just going to, I hope you're having a good time. I'm going to end this road with you, but what I'm going to say is, I think part of it, what the policymakers are trying, their rationale, which I think is good, is, let's incentivize the electric cars, so they're not having that tax, those registration fees kick in for 4 years. Well, so the money is coming in different ways from different types of taxes, and they're trying to figure out how to get the infrastructure for the electric cars and at the same time get people to buy them. They're more expensive, incentivize them in some way as this gets, started, I think. Okay, I'm going to move off of roads.
Can I ask a question, one more, just about roads?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so
I'm a softie.
I heard, this is quick. I heard that a lot of the gas tax money for our roads is going down to LA to fix their roads in preparation for the Olympics.
Oh, I don't think so. Excuse me?
Then where's that money going?
Well, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what money you're talking about, but I can tell you at the county level, we're doing everything we can we're actually having conversations around how can we get our hands on more money. How can we get our share of the money in the unincorporated? Because especially those of us that have, like I have the second largest unincorporated district. So we want to try and figure out how to get money to the unincorporated. That's where we want, those of us that have a large unincorporated. The cities have their own, staff who can go for grants, and they have their own, whole working thing around this money thing. So we're anyway, okay. I didn't answer your question, did I? I don't know the answer. I haven't heard that.
That wouldn't come from the county. I mean, that would be state.
Yeah, I'm sure it's,
directing that money.
yeah, and I don't know the answer, I'm sorry. Okay, yes.
That, the 12-cent additional gas tax that was put on a year or so ago.
These are good questions.
Where does it go? And since it's being paid at the pump in Sacramento County, Is that money being kept in Sacramento County, or is it going down, as the woman just said, down to LA? Because our roads in Orangevale are literally falling into the ditches.
Yeah. To answer your question where it goes, have you ever seen those movies where they're writing a mathematical equation trying to solve something and they've got all this stuff going all these different directions from all these different places? Visualize that and that will tell you where it goes. Okay? It is going, serious? Vance, tell him I'm telling the truth. Vance is the one, he's the one that taught me that, okay? In fact, I said, where's the money going? And he showed me and I'm like, well, how do I explain that? I don't even know where to start. But it is going, it's going to roads, it's going to transit, it's 500 million went to passenger rail. They're trying to bring trains, you know, parks, libraries, there was all kinds of stuff. It's that kind of that thing where policymakers say, well, I'll vote for it if you'll put something in there for blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. Okay, I didn't answer your question because I don't even know how to answer that. It's pretty complicated.
It's just like the Folsom Railway that has one or two people in 3 cars most of the day.
I can tell you that without SB1, we would be, you know, we would have been laying people off and there would have been, you know, it's, you know, I did not support it. I kind of ascribe to, it's time to, it's kind of like with your kid. Do you keep saying, no, no, Johnny, or do you draw a line in the sand and say, no, you need to go back and rethink that? That it was that kind of thing for me personally, and I think for my district. There were some people in my district that supported it, but the majority did not, and I took that as, you know, okay, I have to represent my district. So that was my first priority, was to represent well and respond. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because now it's 5 minutes till, but I do want to tell you there's a new level of recycle coming. And we're going to be recycling organics. And organics is wood, food, sewage, sludge, paper, cardboard, manure, carpets, waste from any living organisms. We're grappling with how we will do this in a way that will not impact public health. Because what happens now when we go to organics is it's a whole new level. You know, we'll have to pick that up more often. We're trying to decide whether we mix it in with the yard waste, and if we do, we'll have to pick it up more frequently. But the big difference now between what we were doing and what we're going to be doing is that it's punitive, meaning that the legislature is asking us to put an expectation, and if people do not live up to the expectations, to set fines. We're looking at, the suggested was first violation 50 to 100, second violation 100 to 200, third 250 to 300. We're challenged right now to figure out how we can process that stuff. It's because we'll need a facility.
They're already ascribing a punitive for something that they haven't decided how it's going to be handled.
No, they don't decide. They hand it down to us and they say, you'll do this by 2022 and you figure it out. And so we're saying, okay, we have to do this by this date, which means now we need to figure out how are we going to train the communities around this. How are we going to educate the communities on what to do? Where are we going to take the food waste to process it without impacting air quality? Because, you know, you can't have it's not emissions, it's
Biomass.
it's biomass. Who said that? Oh yeah,
Brian did.
Brian. But it's going to require either two things. We'll either have to build a facility or we'll have to truck it out, and if it's trucked out, it has to be in enclosed special trucks where what is that, methane gas? Okay, we can't have that. We don't want methane gas, and so we have to cover our landfills. Well, before it gets taken out, we'll have to cover it with dirt and then take the dirt off to haul it out. There's all kinds of logistics to be worked out. I'm gonna call on Jim because he hasn't had a chance.
Just real quick, what's the recycling program doing now? Is it paying for itself?
Well, that's a good question, because that's hopefully, I know you do. But it will be good, it is good, the idea of, if we can find a way that can become a profit center to bring a factory, that can come in and create jobs and do this. And we are having conversations with other jurisdictions to see if we can partner with them for one big facility somewhere in the region or the several county region. We're also looking at how will we manage the landfills, because it's going to change the way we manage our landfill also.
So what do you think is your opinion?
I think over...
Is paying for itself, or?
I can't answer that. I think technology right now in all these different areas...
I can't answer, it's fine.
No, let me answer. I can't, I'm still answering. I said I can't answer, but what I did want to tell you, technology is changing so fast that we could go out and build this big, huge facility for $150 million to process it without releasing any methane gas. And then 5 years from now, some smart person will come along and figure out how to put a drop of this fluid on it that makes the whole thing disintegrate, for all we know. It's like everything is changing so fast, and there's so many smart things happening. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's just incredible, the things that people are coming up with. Okay, last one.
I spoke with the people in public transportation, the light rail, and I asked them how they were doing. They said, oh, it's fine. I go, well, then it's making a profit? And they told me, well, no, it's actually taking a loss. Well, how is it doing fine if it's taking a loss?
Okay, light rail, I can tell you, light rail and passenger rail typically, I was told, are a net loss of 50%. Buses, a net loss of 80%. So any public transportation is going to be expected to take a loss.
Right, so why don't you keep putting programs in that are taking a loss and ask the people?
We're required to provide public transportation. We're actually required. Okay, I'm going to take two more, and then we're going to end it, and I'm going to stay as long as everyone wants. These two.
Okay, so that was my question in conjunction with all of that is, why do they keep throwing more stuff at us that is going to cost money when we can't even get enough to fix our roads? If we can't get enough to fix our roads, why are we having to spend $150 million to create a new facility to take care of this new thing?
I think,
why don't they, we're bleeding, why don't they stop the bleeding first, and then when they get flush with cash, let's start these new programs?
I think in California, our policymakers want us to be at the cutting edge of this new technology, and they're pushing us to be at the forefront, to be leaders in this area, and it is creating economic, very much a challenge economically, but sometimes the best laid intentions, they don't always work out the way you hoped, but I believe in their heart they're trying to do something good. I really do. Okay, this
fast. Are compostable things, like your extra vegetables, all the stuff that you're cutting up and this sort of thing, is that considered? Can that still be green waste? No. Or is that not something you're supposed to be putting in there? Where do you?
So what we're talking about right now is that we will mix food, organics, and wood, and all those things: sewage, sludge, paper, cardboard, manure, carpets, any living organisms. Sewage is like dog poop, okay? Animal feces, whatever you want to call it. Homeless feces. Okay, sorry I had to say it. We're gonna put all that, but the challenge we have now is that everyone has been expected on a best efforts. You know, nobody comes, you don't have the food police coming to your house, right?
But
we
got a notice on our trash can.
Okay,
Good job.
it's just starting, okay. It's going to, okay, now it's not going to be on a best efforts. It's going to be do it or get a fine. And when you get a fine, you'll say, okay, I guess I better figure out how to do this. That's what they're thinking, I think.
Is this going to be all of California or just Sacramento County?
Just us.
I don't know what's happening outside. I mean, I know all of California, I'm sure all of California and other regions, other people are grappling with it, and we are actually talking with, you know, outside our county to see who we can partner with on this. But what I do want to say is, I don't know about you guys, but every now and then I'll be at the end of a work day in my yard and I'll say, oh gosh, it won't be the end of the world if that plastic bag goes in my yard waste. You know, I know I'm bad, I can't help it, but you know what I'm talking about? Okay, we won't get away with that anymore. We're not going to get away with it anymore. Now what's happening is that goes down to the recycle at the county, and they actually have people physically separating all that stuff out. And now there's going to be food in the middle of it, and it's going to be a human health issue, and we will have to go by the rules. So I mean, that's the okay. Now I'm going to say thank you everyone for coming. I'm going to stay as long as you need me to. And I promised I would have respect for your time, and I want to make sure I do that. And so, stay as long as you want. I'll stay here if you want, but the meeting's over if you want to go. Thank you.
Does this mean we're going to have one more chance?
I don't think so. I think what it's looking like is we're going to turn that yard way.